at round 2. It's been a stumble block for him once upon a time, and he's going to try to prevent it. That will happen again today against this man. In the bottom left side, our blue Zerg representing Good Game Gaming. It's a Rattata.
His opponent in the upper right in the red, looking to put Rattata in a Slambo. He's Lambo. That made no sense.
It made sense.
It's okay.
Don't worry. A couple of mirrors to start today off with. We had a PvP, and even though it was 3-0, I definitely think it was an exciting one and a lot to talk about. And anybody 3-0ing Showtime is just super impressive. So I think it's definitely one that we won't forget anytime soon. Now we have a ZVZ. Our next series is going to be a TVT between Big Gabe and Spirit. Spirit, who looked really good yesterday. I think it's going to be quite fun as well. For now, let's see what ZVZ can bring us. It's kind of like a little showdown between the mirrors, you know. What is the best mirror? We're going to find out today.
Well, it's funny because they're always, especially with these mirrors, there's like the good mirror and the bad mirror in the same side. It's the portrait of the artist. You got the scary man in the mirror, where you have this early game night fight ZVZ that's ended by one Bailey, and you're like, okay, that was cool, explosions, but doesn't really show us a lot, or maybe Roach headbutts. And then we have just the unfettered beauty of late game Hydra, Lurker, Viper, mass positioning. It's so cool. PvP, same idea, Blink Stalker Disruptor, or just, okay, we're going to headbutt Zealots and Archons and someone wins, or, TBT same way. I think we got a fantastic version of the PvP mirror. We saw all types of stuff in the Max Packs Showtime series. And it looks like for now, we're not seeing that unfettered aggression in the ZVZ. We've passed like the first couple breakpoints of ZVZ in general in this setup. So maybe we will get some of that glorious intensity that is late game ZVZ, at least on, say, 2K Atmos.
Yeah, but I think we're going to see a lot of mind games, right? And we're definitely going to see a decent amount of Spires in this best of 5. I think both players kind of like to go into the Spires if they feel like it's the correct choice. Wouldn't even hate to see a little Muda game against Roach Corruptor. I think that stuff is always kind of interesting to see when the move outs take place. What is the right numbers of units to go with it? But for Lambo, I think Lambo is going to try to keep all of this as simple and obvious and straightforward as possible, because we know him as a very confident individual. Once more, he knows his strengths and weaknesses, and he will look at this series knowing Rattata is very dangerous, but he will probably think that he is the superior player. So as long as he keeps a close eye on everything that the Blue Zerg is doing here, in his mind, I think he's going to be all right. He has not dropped a Baneling nest yet, by the way, and he's barely mining any gas. So he's just going to skip. That is a little bit risky. He's going to make a lot of links and then probably go straight into the Roachborn.
One of those things where the best defense is a good offense. So you flood the map with about 20 lings, right around that 25, 27 drone timing. You put pressure on the third base, and even if Rattata does have Banelings, it is going to be Lambo saying maybe, and there we go, Baneling nest on the way for Lambo anyways, saying he is confident enough in his ling control that the Banelings are going to get massive connections, and then Rattata just will not have the agency, the room really, to run across the map and do something with it. So, as we said, Lambo, he's on the map right now. He's got 27 links, and he gets a surround on 2 queens here. That's actually such a big deal in this matchup. Both of them will go down, and Rattata, he's losing the ling fight too, but more come in, so he's going to be okay. But now it is 1 queen on the map for Rattata. He does not have his defensive queen. He does not have injects on every base. There is no creep spread. Again, if you're not Roach Wars, you don't really care about creep spread, but no injects. I'm not saying the game's over. It's not. But this can intensely snowball if Rattata does not fix this pretty quickly.
Yep, Rattata does have 1 Baneling on this side of the map, so he's going to try to make some magic happen, but Lambo has plenty of defensive Banelings finishing up. It does seem that Lambo is going to end up losing 1 queen. There really isn't any saving, unless those Banelings would have finished up just ever so slightly quicker. Whoa, did he use 2 Banelings there? That feels a little bit excessive. I don't think Lambo had to use 2 Banes. But that was really sick, man. The way that Lambo saw those 2 queens, he knew there was a morphing Ling into Baneling. But he's like, I think I have enough time. Had like 0.1 second to decide that he had enough time. Gets the surround, gets the double kill. and gets out of there right when the one bailing of Rattata finished up. And this is kind of what I was talking about before, where I expect Lambo to often be the first aggressor, just to be in the face of his opponent. Because whenever you have games like this, it won't come down to a build order win, right, or a coin flip. Like, no, you kind of know what's happening. And even if Lambo put himself a little bit behind economically, he is confident that he can play his way into an advantage. And I think he's kind of done that at this point. Now he's ahead in workers, and obviously he picked up a couple of coins.
It's really interesting seeing Lambo attempt to extend the early game in this game one, because European ZVZ for the last year, maybe 2 years, maybe even 3, has been all about getting into the mid game quickly. We don't see this Ling Bane aggression nearly as much as we used to, because it seems like players just respect each other enough. Lings find their way on in. They will not find any value this time, and Rattata has been joining up just a little bit harder because Lambo, we talked about his advantages, Roddy. He's pretty heavily supply blocked here. That's going to be a problem. The Banelings may fix that one. 5 die. And Rattata, despite that, 4 or 5 worker lead.
Yeah, I mean, that will fix it indeed, but not the way you want to fix your supply blocks. Lambo is obviously the one who's going into roaches a bit quicker. Maybe that's why Rattata had a little economic lead. I do like the way that Rattata has played this at one point where he's like, man, I know you're making units, you're clearly being somewhat aggressive, but it doesn't really seem like you want to kill me. So even though he's been taking a little beating here and there, he's done a great job in replenishing these workers. And it is, of course, for Lambo important that he doesn't start playing overly safe. That is just not the right way to play StarCraft 2 in general. You always need to take a healthy amount of risk, and hopefully you can calculate those risks nicely by everything that you see, whether it's with overlords or a couple of lings running around. But at this point, it does feel that Rattata is the one who's taking slightly bigger chances, and it seems like he's getting away with it up to this point.
All right, so Rattata, he's on 6 gas now. But say, hey, we'll look out for a Spire. But Spire is here now. That Roach into Spire play has become so popular as of late because it really forces your opponent to do this delicate balancing act. Is it 6 mutas and they're going to max out on Roaches behind this? That's scary, or is it going to be this wholesale commitment? Now, Lambo scouts it, so he's aware that a Spire is going down. He's aware that resources have been spent in that direction, so he will maybe be able to really bolster his supply, go for some sort of timing. But for now, Lings, they find their way into the 3rd base, and it doesn't look like they're going to get too much. Good drone pull for now. Actually, good trap there from Lambo. Going to knock a couple of them down. But Lambo, actually, I was going to say his 4th base on the way. It is, but Rattata getting ahead in that measure too. His 4th base just about done. Spire on the way. Rattata with an army supply lead. Feels like he's really been able to greed out after the damage he took and put himself in a pretty nice spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that Spire is going to finish up. Lambo is going to see if he can do something about this 4th base, and at the same time set up another Ling run-by on the left side with a couple of Banelings too. It's just important for Rattata to not completely fall apart. Like, he's got more than enough units to technically deal with this, but the 3rd base is very wide open. A couple of Banelings are going to make their way into the middle line once more. That's 9 drones going down. I mean, Lambo, his moves are definitely working out so far. He did scout the Spire very early on. I hope he actually saw it, but I think he did because that's why he dropped the Hydralisk then.
Oh man, Roddy, I was about to praise Rattata because we noticed as his Roaches moved over to defend the Roach pressure on the right, he just immediately moved those Banelings that had been defending his 4th. He moved them back to his 3rd, so he could go and defend the Ling run by. And he did it, and the Lings all died, but those 2 Banelings on the back end, he just, I guess, put a little bit too much stock into that Baneling defense. So we do find him again. He's lost 17 workers in this game. I believe that was maybe an infestation pit that Lambo just canceled. Didn't really see, but Hydras are on the way now. And you got to be careful here because you don't really want Hydras against 6 mutas. 6 mutas are a harassment force. They are we're going to kill some overlords, maybe kill some workers, but they're not part of that army. And when you build Hydras, when we're talking at this point, if Rattata is going to be able to max out off that, because again, Hydras are so expensive, especially with their upgrades, there is a timing that Rattata may be looking to hit as there we go. 23 Banelings and Baneling speed on the way, where he just rolls over Lambo's army.
Yep, and Lambo is actually going to be the one moving out, and it's very important that he moves out with actually all of his units together. I mean, these Banelings, if they make their way through and connect with the Hydras, all the Hydras will melt. The funny thing about Banelings as well is that it's not even always about the connections they get, but if they force Lambo to just split his army in an insane concave, that actually means that Rattata should have a couple of very easy pickups with his ground force, because Lambo's units are going to be all over the place. So this is going to be a very interesting fight where I just think the one with the better execution is going to win it. I think they both have potential to win this fight. Lambo does not have any vision of all these banelings on the right side. This could actually become very painful because here come the banelings via move.
Oh, here they come, and oh, the Hydras are on creep too, so the banelings come rolling on in. Decent splits from Lambo right now, but most of the Hydras are down. That being said, Lambo, he's up 40 supply anyways. I think most of that's, no, it's actually in this army here, so even with the banelings crashing in, it does not matter, Roddy. Cool moves there from Rattata, absolutely. But Lambo, he has his splits well enough. The banelings are off creep just long enough that Rattata, he loses his third base. These mutas are not going to be doing much of anything. And yeah, now defender's advantage, the ability for creep to pop. Rattata will force Lambo back for the moment, but those banelings were cool. They were not cool enough.
Yeah, that's crazy because it actually felt that Rattata got about as good of a fight there as he ever could have. And it was still nowhere near enough. I understood that he moved the roaches very confidently forward, feeling that this is the fight. And then it just kind of wasn't. I'm really a bit surprised. Lambo's army is just very powerful. They both had +2 missile attacks. Lambo definitely split his units, but he didn't oversplit. He wasn't just running. He was splitting, but still fighting pretty much all the time. And obviously winning the fight and taking out the base. Yeah, that's massive for Lambo.
That it is. So Lambo now, he's still equal on workers. No workers died from Rattata, but he's up a base. Means they're going to try to fly. They're doing actually a really good job suppressing the economy of Lambo just a little bit, but Roddy, it's 4 mutas. That doesn't do all that much for you. And now Lambo, he's happy with his game state. He's moving into a hive now. He's moving to that next level of tech. But look at this. Rattata, he's found part of the army on the left side. That's a kill, not a cancel on that rebuilding third base. But if Rattata is going to be able to go, maybe he is maxed out. He's up a bit on army supply. Chase down part of this army that is not the full army of Lambo. Kill some of these Hydras as well. That's scary, but Lambo, he is everywhere on the map right now. Roaches find their way into the natural, but Rattata, he will kill off Lambo's third. This game it's all over the place, Rotterdam. It's getting really crazy.
Yeah, it's getting indeed kind of crazy, but Lambo's counterattack is sick though. Has already killed 23 drones and is going to win that fight against just a couple of roaches too. So Rattata is going to be forced to send more units home, but he can't possibly be happy with everything that he has accomplished so far. I think Rattata knows that he needs a little more, but is he ever going to be able to get more? He does have 11 Ravages, and that could absolutely make the difference, not just if the balls connect, but once more if you just force Lambo to keep running away from those corrosive balls. Rattata could potentially win the fight, and this is it. The man really needs to win the fight. He knows it. That's why he's getting so adventurous. I gotta say, the Ravages are very, very exposed in the front lines. I'm not sure if this is the engagement, but he probably just felt that he's on the clock. He needs it right here, right now, and it's close, but I don't think close is going to be good enough.
Roddy, look at the supply here. Rattata lost 30 workers, but he has built back up an army. He's still got a 20 supply lead. More roaches finding their way onto the other side, and we have to remember, Lambo has the bank. Actually, how much? Lambo's larva starved right now, so this supply lead, it's not as big as it once was, but if Rattata is going to be able to pile drive in one final time, maybe that's going to be enough, but I agree with you. Putting those Ravagers at the front was the cardinal sin. You cannot lose them. They're so expensive, and they're such an important part of your army. So really cool idea there. Rattata not rebuilding his drones. He went up to like 170 army supply, just trusting on his spawns to defend at home. But that was not the right path that he looked to take the fight into.
No, like I said, it was decent, it was close, but this is not good enough. Rattata really needed a commanding victory there. He was not quite able to get it. During all of this, Lambo did make his way up to Hive, and he is going to be able to build a couple of lurkers soon too. And even if these lurkers don't have their fancy upgrades yet, they are going to have a very big impact against a man with 45 roaches. You don't need seismic spines and adaptive talents for lurkers to be great against 35 roaches. Or 50 roaches even.
100 roaches, full supply. Yeah, 100 roaches would be fully maxed out on just roaches. Yeah, no. Lurkers do bonus damage to armor. It is really roaches just they pop. But Rattata, he's going for that fight one final time. The lurkers looks like one in this army. Biles are actually not going to land on anything, and Rattata does not have any detection with this army. So even if he was able to dive on top of the lurkers, not really going to do what he wants. He's droned up a little bit, but not all that much. He just really is all in now on this idea of I'm going to max out. It is going to be fine. He does force a cancel, so Lambo is still technically a 3-base Zerg, and the main and the natural of both players still technically in some way mined out. But
yeah,
a 20 worker lead, it says a lot.
the 20 worker lead and the tech lead. Like, I think the tech lead is absolutely the biggest deal here. It's not like Rattata can really go back into Mudas when the hive is already done. There's always a possibility for a couple of Vipers. I think Rattata knows it, that he's on the clock. He's got a monstrous army, like 161 army supply. That's crazy. He's about to have over 60 roaches, but like you said, they will pop if they run into those spines. Lambo knows it as well, and he's feeling confident enough to split up a couple of roaches once more. Where did those spines go, by the way? That's rather okay. He moved them towards the third, because at one point he just panically built spines in the main base. They were in the middle of nowhere. I think you could see that, you know, obviously these guys, sure, they are experienced, but I think especially for Rattata, nerves will 100% still come into play playing a best of 5 like this.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you're Rattata and you're fairly new to this one, even if he did kill Lambo that one time. But now, of course, adaptive talons are done, and there's a world where before adaptive talons are done, you can kind of outtrade a lurker tech with Ravagers, because you just drop the biles, you back up, you go forward, and maybe you knock them all down if Lambo's not quite on top of things. But now that adaptive talons are done, right, that ability to unburrow and reburrow so much faster, it just makes it so much easier for Lambo to dodge. So now Rattata, his entire game plan is going to be to try to look, if he catches the army on the bottom side, and that is a lot of Roach Ravager Hydra. If he kills it, maybe that's giving enough, or even if he just takes the fight. But I mean, even still, Lambo's only down 20 supply. He's had this fantastic push. Rattata being forced to react, and now that he has been forced to go back home, it means that Lambo is going to put him in that chokehold.
That's really sick, man. This is the way that Lambo is actually able to get his lurks to the other side of the map. I think he left a couple of home as well for safety, but that's really cool. Lambo using that squad of units to pull the army of Rattata back home. And he's like, all right, now the map is free for my lurkers to actually make it to the other side of the map. This time around, they do both have their fancy upgrades. Oh no, he's running into 4 lurkers over there on the left side. And this is just, Rattata is slowly but steady coming to an end in this game. He knows it. You're obviously going to try. You hope to land a couple of great corrosive balls. But this, even though numbers-wise it may seem somewhat close, I don't think this is close at all. It feels that Lambo's army is just way better.
Yeah, the noose is just slowly tightening here on the map. Lurkers outside of both points of egress from Rattata's natural third area. But, oh, he does have high ground vision, so he's going to maybe kill a lurker, but then it runs back, drops some spines. And we do have to point out, Lambo's economy now has been shattered. He has lost 20 workers, but the lurkers, the hydras on the right side, they're going to try to kill this base off, but it's only 2 lurkers right now. Rattata now trying to dive on top of it, giving Lambo an opportunity to dive into his own natural. He's doing a pretty good job defending it, but the tech lead, you've been talking about it, Roddy, is just so strong that it feels impossible for Rattata to ever engage into this right now. I believe the Roach Warren died as well. Yeah, it did. So no rebuilding roaches. You actually can't build anything really for Rattata anymore. Lambo going back home with the majority of his army to deal with the run by Roaches, Hydras in the main base. They're up an upgrade too. +3 attack, more important than +2 armor. So they own the ramp and eventually they will die. But look, oh no, that's it. You can't run into lurkers like that and expect to be happy about it. So losing all that does make a difference. And again, look at the supply. 80 to 140. That is a 60 army supply lead with better tech. And yeah, Lambo's economy is in the dumpster now, but he's gotten enough out of it.
Yeah, and he still has that 60 army supply advantage, so it is all good. He's got more units, he's got the better units, and I think these are going to be the closing moments of this very first game. What a beautiful and mature way of Lambo to play out a relatively scrappy game, because at one point this one was all over the place, but I think Lambo played it out in a very calm, cool, and collected manner. That was actually some high-level CVC, I think, from Lambo. Did that thing that I was talking about in the pregame, where he's going to be the first one to make some units just to be in his opponent's face. If you can get something done, that's awesome. And he did get the 2 queens. But if you can't, it's okay. As long as you're out and about on the map, you can keep a close eye on what your opponent is doing. And you're avoiding some of these coin flippy, build or the lost scenarios. And I think that's going to be a trend. I think Lambo will be okay with falling a little bit behind, because I think he's confident that he can bring it back the longer the game goes. And I think it kind of showed here in game 1.
Yeah, I do want to point out, though, I think Rattata had an excellent read of the mid game. He figured out that Lambo was maybe not going to be as aggressive, so he was able to read his way out. And even when he was down, you know, he took all that economic damage. He had the read of, okay, well, yeah, I'm not going to win the late game. I know Hydras are out. Eventually, lurkers are going to be here. Instead, what if I just maxed out on 170 almost army supply? And I think it would have worked. He had all of his army together. Very little was in production. If he hadn't taken the fight through the choke and didn't have, as you pointed out, didn't have all of his Ravagers just right at the front of that army, And that is so key. Ravagers, they add a lot of DPS, they have additional range, they have those piles, but they're super squishy. So if he doesn't have those Ravagers forward, I do think he has a shot to punch through and really, really turn the game back in his favor. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen for Rattata fans. Lambo, he was able to clutch it out late. And now we move into a map that is the map with, I believe, the second lowest pick rate in the entire event in Curious Minds.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Nobody wants to play it unless you're a Terran, and maybe the Terrans get sick of it in TVT. Yeah, it's funny because for a while we actually saw Curious Minds all the time, and even lately in some of the weekly tournaments, I'm like, man, why do we keep playing Curious in best of threes? Like, these Protosses and Zergs are crazy, and I'm like, maybe they have a certain style that they're very fond of, and then most of the time the Terran just wins, and I'm like, well, it's confusing, but that we play it in a ZVZ best of 5. I think that's kind of fair. I think this will be a map where normally we do see a lot of aggression too. It could be a bit tricky, right? Because there is a little ramp going into the natural. So you could do weird stuff with Evo chambers and try to keep your opponent in the dark and then potentially pocket a lot of units. I think that's stuff that Rattata is very capable of and stuff that he's done many times in the past. So could be a fun one.
Oh, good. And I mean, this is also one of those maps that it's really hard to transition past the mid game because it is so wide open. It is so close. So we saw Lambo. He was able to clutch it out in part because he did get to that hive and he did get to that Hydra tech and did get to those lurkers and found that way to not only build better army supply and build better economy for the most of the game, but build that tech that really Rattata could not deal with. Curious Minds, though, you pointed out, it's short. It has some wide open areas. It is really hard to say, kind of almost save that money and then make that transition happen. So I think you're right. I think aggression, a lot more focus on the mid game, which again, to Rattata's credit, he does seem to have a significant understanding of. He seems to have a good read on that.
Yeah, for sure. And I like how you pointed that out as well, where he's like, all right, I see what you're doing, Lambo, and I'm just going to be greedy. And that's kind of the trap that Lambo can't fall in this best of 5, where he doesn't get overconfident, thinking that he's always going to be fine and he can play super safe, because if you play too safe, you can fall too far behind. And Rattata has good macro. He is incredibly good at building these basic units, the Roaches, the Lynx, the Ravagers, in other matchups as well. And he's going to show up with more units than you sometimes expect, because I don't know how he does it. He finds minerals where we can't quite find them yet. Maybe there's some hidden mineral patches that nobody has ever discovered, but Rattata is incredibly good at spamming the basic units. So that's why it's, I think, a very tricky best of 5 for Lambo, despite the fact that he's the favorite and he should be the more solid player across the board. You're gonna have to roll the dice a little bit here and there, but try to limit it to a minimum. And I think the first game kind of showed that, and it was crappy, it was hectic, but I think Lambo did look very good in the end.
Oh, yeah, no, he did it. And I'm looking for the bright spots of Rattata, but yeah, the story of that entire game was one that Lambo, again, he looked very good, and he was either minorly and significantly in the lead for the majority of it. So now we're going to have to see, Roddy, in this second game, whether there is something that Rattata can do, or whether this is just going to be a 2-0 lead, because in the bottom right, he is the goodest gamer. He is Rattata.
And in the top left side of Curious Minds, we're looking at the main base of the man that is representing the ever so lovely Shopify Rebellion, the German Zerg Lambo.
Roddy, tell me, how curious is your mind?
That truly depends what we're talking about.
Phoenix case. How about that? There we go.
Talking about Phoenixes? I'm very curious about Phoenixes.
I don't have anywhere to go from that. Please carry me.
I mean, you set this up. I thought you wanted to go somewhere. I mean, I watch a lot of space videos at YouTube late at night if I can't fall asleep. So I guess I'm kind of curious about the great unknown. Is that something you can work with, mate?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Saw a fun video this morning about the new dark matter detection facility they have in Australia, in a gold mine to match the really cool experiment they have in Italy. So that's fun.
Sounds fun.
There we go.
Is it related to Curious Minds? Maybe it is.
I'm curious. My mind is curious about it. Is there a transition we can make from dark matter to ZVZ?
I mean,
I fight in the phone booth in the dark matter?
Who was the first one to ever say that? Was it Pig? It sounds like a Pig thing.
I feel like that was a thing when Pig was a player, though.
Yeah, but Pig would probably still talk about that when he is a player. I mean, I feel like it's been a thing for so long, and I've heard Pig say it many times, and I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Like, is it still true?
I think in European ZVZ, it's less so. Because we do see, and yeah, we did see Lambo get aggressive, but especially at the highest level. So say Raynor versus Cyril is the fantastic example of that. They will not go for the link floods all that often. If you talk about NA ZVZ, absolutely 27 link flood, go every single game. Let's go. Let's add some Banes, and this is going to be crazy. But the Europeans in particular seem to have decided that their opponents are so good at defending their aggression that it's almost not worth doing, because by going for it, you put yourself a little bit behind.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, the European CVZ has all been about like, no, that cannot work if player X just does this or that, and they follow these steps, they scout for it, and then you put yourself behind. So the European CVZ just kind of took steps. It's like, yeah, those timing attacks are good, but also shouldn't work. And then at one point, the only way that anything should work is like, okay, maybe go for a Spire, or you just play Lurker or Viper, you know, like way down the line. And then Rogue is like, yeah, that's very funny, but look at my, you know, early pool and link flood. And it's like, okay, it can still work. It's like, no, that shouldn't work, but he's very good at making it work. So I do kind of agree with you. This game has opened up in a very different manner though than the previous one. I already mentioned that ramp going into the natural, and that's why you'll see a little less of the super standard link speed, the Baneling Nest for safety, and let's just poke a little bit, because you can wall off with Queens, Evo Chambers, and just go straight into Roach Warren. And both players have actually completely skipped out on Zergling speed so far.
Of course, yeah, when you have the ramp like that, it's a lot easier to keep yourself alive. So these gasless 2.5 base, so it is a delayed third by about 10 supply. Gasless Roach timings, they do tend to be a little bit more popular on this map, but what I find interesting is even if there are, you know, proclivities for one build or the other, the gasless quick Roach idea is off meta enough that even if we see one player doing it, I didn't expect to see both players going for it. So we're in that weird scenario where both players have done the exact same thing, and now Rattata and Lambo both, this build is designed to go across the map, kill a third, maybe kill their opponent, but because they have the exact same thing, we're just going to move on into a mid game now, unless, say, Lambo, he commits really hard and Rattata doesn't have the read, and suddenly it's 40 army supply of Roaches versus 10 because Rattata says, oh, surely, Lambo, you're just going to try to greed out on this because you see that I know that you know that I know that you know that we have the same thing.
I mean, last game, Lambo scouted the Spire very, very quickly. This time around, that Overseer was almost right where it was supposed to be, but that Queen deflected it, and the Overseer turned around. Lambo may just still read this as, I have the feeling you're going for a Spire. I mean, Rattata's making a lot of drones here. For a man who's going Spire, he's also building a lot of drones at the same time. And if Lambo just builds nothing but Roaches, sends it to the other side of the map, like, I don't think Rattata will straight up die, but losing the third hatchery would already be very catastrophic.
It would be, and you talk about just sending stuff on the other side of the map. That is something you can get away with a lot more on Curious Minds. You can pull that trigger and just go a lot easier on, say, Curious than 2K Atmos, or on the other side of things on like a Hardwire. But the longer this goes, where Lambo doesn't really know that Rattata is moving into this, the scarier it maybe gets for Lambo. That being said,
I feel like he knows.
Sorry?
I feel like he knows. He took a little poke there with the Overseer. He also saw a couple of drones head towards what is most likely going to be an extractor. And Lambo is still just making units. So I feel like if you want to attack, he definitely needs to go right here, right now. To me, this kind of felt like Lambo knew. And he is just gearing up for the big attack. But he should kind of go for it right about now, though, because the mutas are literally on the way already.
Well, you got to point out here, Lambo's cut workers at 43, so he is absolutely going for this dropping creep to make him move across the map even faster. And yes, we have, it's going to be like 5 mutas on the map. Yeah, this is a problem. 5 mutas are on the map, the run on the other side. But Rattata is droning. He doesn't know this is happening. And it's not like we're hitting 15 mutas critical mass to make something happen. The question now, though, is whether Lambo can find his way on the ramp, can get the damage that he needs before the mutas eventually pare this down. But it's only 5 mutas, Roddy. Lambo had the perfect read in this game. There is just no supply anymore. So the Roaches and the Natural from Lambo are just killing everything. And it's Curious Minds. The reinforcement rate is insanely fast here. So the mutas, they sit on top, and maybe they eventually kill every single Roach, but not before every single other thing in the game is dead. Lambo is looking prime to go up 2-0.
Yep, I mean, I would have loved to see Lambo at least put 4 or 5 roaches into the third base, so he'd be on top of those drones as well. Instead, he just wants to kill each and every single drone that was in the natural. He's going to chase those drones all the way down into the main base. There is a Hydra then behind all of this, so it's not like Lambo will ever find himself in a scenario where he's got 0 anti-air. And sure, maybe eventually all these roaches will die, which honestly at one point I'm starting to doubt. Because Rattata is reinforcing not with more mutas, but with a couple of roaches, just to create a buffer. Lambo just had way too much. GG. Lambo didn't see everything, but it really did feel like he knew this was the attack he wanted to go for, and he was convinced that he would have the right amount of units to just run straight up in there and basically destroy everything on the ground. And just kind of close your eyes, pretend those mutas ain't there, because it will take forever for those mutas to clean up that amount of roaches. Rattata, on the other hand, he definitely didn't know, because while Lambo was moving out with an overwhelming ground force, Rattata's like, I'll make a few more drones. I've got a couple of safety mutas out. We'll snipe some overlords. He was even going for that overseer at the bottom side of the map. He's like, no, needs to get ready. Needed a couple of spines, and then maybe it could have all been okay, even if you stabilize on 2 bases. But Lambo was very decisive there, and without seeing everything, it felt like he knew everything.
You know, the one thing that has me thinking, okay, maybe Lambo doesn't think this is mutas without scouting it, is the fact that it was only 5 gas going into mutas. Normally, if that is muta play, you just take as much gas as possible, as quick as possible, because, well, you do want the gas for the mutas. But Lambo, he just saw, I'm assuming just the lack of roaches, and that was going to be enough of a tell for him, and pulling that trigger. On the other side, though, I understand why Rattata was being as greedy as he was. We saw that in the last game as well. If you feel like you're the underdog, there are 2 ways you can go about it. You can go, well, I mean, there are multiple ways, but 2 big ways. You can either cheese the hell out of someone, 13, 12, whatever, or you can try to go for the macro cheese, like what Rattata is doing, moving into Spire play pretty quickly, droning when it probably is not the safest place to do. But if you get away with it, suddenly you're up 10 workers, and then you can maybe look to leverage that worker lead into a win, even if you're, I don't know, maybe you're not the favored player, and maybe you're not playing the map as well as your opponent.
Yeah, I mean, Lambo is obviously now in a very sweet spot, 2-0, and 2 very different games, right? First game, it felt like he really had to work for it. Second game, the man just had a soul read or had a great feeling, or this was his plan all along. Perhaps we can get to talk a little bit to Lambo if he does win this best of 5, and we can have a little interview with him, because I think Lambo is always a lovely individual to interview. After the previous game, Rattata requested a 3-minute pause. So Biomorph and I are not sitting here just talking about the games because we think we're so interesting and have so much to share. It's just Rattata who wants a moment. It's obviously a big series for him. You play for a couple of weeks, very stressful. Each and every single day you charge yourself up, and now it all comes down to this one best of 5 in the lower bracket. After that game ended, or the first one ended, 3-minute break, was ready. Second game ends, he's like, be right back, 2 minutes. So, you know, the breaks are getting shorter, but the game also got shorter, so that's not a good sign. But maybe if he does win this one, he'll just say, 1 minute, be right back. And afterwards, we can just go ahead and dive straight into games. That'd be great.
And then I guess by game 5, then do we have like a negative 1 minute break, and suddenly we're somehow into
we don't get invited
before.
No, we don't get invited. They start without us.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
that would happen in the European Pro Tour Weekly, you know, on the Monday night. It's like, all right, this was a great series, but somehow we didn't get invited into game 5. Wardy will tell you all about that.
Just gotta spam. Yeah, no, I'm well. It happens in all the weeklies. I'm well familiar. We just spam the button, and it's like, oh yeah, we waited 2 seconds here. Oh, sorry, you didn't get it? Okay, we're gonna go. Okay, well, that's how that works. You talk about shorter games, though, Roddy. Glittering Ashes is going to be this next map, and maybe I focus on the maps maybe a little bit too much, but I don't know that we see quite as short of a game on this map, because maybe less in the mirrors, but it feels like the Glittering Ashes does not end until we pass 15 minutes, until our opponents are on 4 to 5 bases, and then you can finally start to break it open a little bit.
True, but we can also get greedy Spire play, and that can get punished by Nidus networks, right? We've definitely seen plenty of stuff in the past. There's a lot of space to drop a Nidus, sometimes even in the corner of a main, but that should never really happen in a CVC, but it does still happen. Anyway, Rattata has returned from his 2-minute break, and I personally feel That is 2-minute break was longer than the 3-minute break, so I don't really know what's happening over there, but we are ready to go ahead and hop into Glittering Ashes. This could also be a very fun map, but we maybe go for +1 melee. I've always been a very big fan of styles like that in ZVZ. It just creates a lot of action, a lot of movement on the map. And I think if there is one map to play that style and then go for Mudas as well, so just play pure Ling, Bane, Muda with melee upgrades, it's kind of this one, right, in this current map pool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But we're going to have to see if that is what he wants to go for in his attempt to run it back for a clean sweep, a reverse sweep. He is, for Good Game Gaming, Rattata.
And in the top right side, we're looking at the main base of the man who has to be enjoying himself so far in this best of 5. I do think everything has gone according to plan for him so far. One map away from making it into the top 8 of the most prestigious online European tournament, Shopify Rebellion's Lambo.
You know, Roddy, you talked about how the break between the last two games, or between last game and this game, is longer than the 3-minute break. But that can very easily be solved by relativity. We're getting closer to the big Gabe series. Now, Gabe is big, therefore more gravity. Therefore, as we get closer to it, we experience time differently. We figured it out. That's absolutely what it is.
So Gabe is a black hole.
Exactly. And we're approaching his whatever it is, not the singularity, but we're approaching the accretion disk, and time is starting to go slower.
You are definitely losing me. When I say I watch space videos, I mostly meant about how many planets there are and, I don't know, the great filter or something, whatever they are talking about, whatever helps you sleep late at night. I do not know too much about that part, but I trust you. You can tell me whatever, and I'm just going to assume that you're very knowledgeable on the subject.
Great. So then I'm going to talk about how... Zerg is not Imba. Zerg, just the best players play Zerg, and then you're gonna believe me. Great, okay, fantastic, thank you.
When it comes to space, and not when it comes to Star.
Dang it.
I believe you're pretty knowledgeable about StarCraft 2 Beowulf. I'm not disappointed.
Anyways, on Glittering Ashes, you talked about it. This is a map that mutas work very well in, and specifically going straight into mutas. The question, though, that we need to ask ourselves is whether Lambo knows, he knows that, whether he looks to kind of almost soul read that, soul punish that, go for a roach timing to hit before +1 melee is done, if that's what Rattata goes for, before all those mutas are out. Because, look, Rattata, he's down 2, and that is a very easy way to go out 0-3 in a series, or even if it's not a 0-3, Lambo's 2 got 2 maps to give. He has more flexibility in his playbook now.
So if Lambo had one spicy build that he thinks could be good to use, he could always go for it. As I believe Rattata just lost one of his first links there. And that's obviously not a big deal. It's just a single Zergling. But normally you're supposed to run that away, right? Like there's no point in just attacking a hatchery while letting your one link get attacked. Maybe Rattata was busy injecting or building something at home, wasn't quite paying attention. But it's just nice to have one link still running around on the other side of the map. Gives you a bit of map vision. Lambo is going to make a lot of links, though, before Rattata is making a decent amount of links. I mean, it should kind of even up. Now we're going to keep a close eye on where they will morph their first banelings. See if somebody is going to get cheeky. As Lambo does get quite a bit of damage already on this hatchery. He's also going to do his best to win this little link skirmish. Ends up being a 2-for-2. Well, Rattata is going to have very solid defense here. Where are we morphing banelings, by the way? Just at home? Ooh.
Oh, aggressively. There we go. Yeah. Rattata does see this. He did see the Lings. Oh, no. I guess he didn't. He's building 6 workers here. I guess he feels confident with his Ling Bane count right now. It actually is a significant worker or Ling lead for Lambo at the moment. But if Rattata is going to be able to hold this off, good Baneling connections, or at least just good zoning with those Banes, nice. Rattata will find himself a minor worker lead. But the more Banes we add, the more complex this hold is for Rattata, Roddy.
So far, a very good micro dub by Rattata. Good job keeping that one Baneling alive. Good job zoning
the natural.
with
Roddy, the natural.
Ooh, okay. Well, it was good until that happened. 9 drones going down. Lambo perhaps feeling that Rattata was paying a little too much attention towards the triangle. Sneaked in 2 Banelings. Wow, that's big, man. That's 9 drones this early into the game. Very well done by Lambo.
That it is. We saw Lambo doing that in the first game. He punished Rattata hard for I don't know, maybe being too focused, right? Too tunnel visioned on one spot. So it happened multiple times where he ran Banes in, and here come more Banes. Rattata again. The split is late. 12 total workers have died. He's going to try to make it 13, and he will. But you asked for that +1 melee idea. He's going for it in this game. And on the other side of the map, Lambo finds Rattata finds a couple workers, not enough to justify 13 going down. But maybe it's the start of something. And more Banelings, though, they're rolling in. Oh, no.
Yeah, especially if you're the one playing +1 melee, you don't want to be on this side. You want to actually be on this side that you might be down a couple of workers, but then you're looking for openings because you have a lot of links out on the map. This really stings for Rattata because now he needs to replace all the drones that he's been losing, and then he can't even accomplish anything with all the links that should have +1. As Lambo is just very casually running 3 Zerglings. Why does Rattata not have any vision on the right side of his natural? This is like the 3rd or 4th time that a couple of units make it into the natural, and it feels like he's just not aware of it.
Oh, he apparently doesn't have vision everywhere, because at this point, Lambo has started to just tempo the hell out of him. He's going left, he's going right, and Rattata feels like he's always a step behind. Here come Links on the other side, trying to make something happen, but he loses the link. Well, actually, he wins the link fight. Banelings find their way on in. That's a bunch of low drones right now, but the Banelings pop just in time, so a couple more workers fall. More Banes run in, though. That's 3 for 2, but does it matter here? Because now the Lings, they have +1 done pretty soon. Not just yet. Drones that have to get pulled. Rattata trying to make something out of nothing. He does get some of the Queens down, but the Roaches pop.
That was actually decent. Imagine if he had +1 for all of that, right?
Oh,
and those Links are so much more feisty. But the Links are still faster than a couple of the Roaches that Lambo had. So Lambo is not totally out of the woods. Very solid second wave defense there, though, by Lambo. At least Lambo gets something, or excuse me, Rattata gets something to feel a little better about. But at this point, he wants to build a few more drones, get ready for the Spire phase of this game. But Lambo's having none of that. He's like, mate, you forced me to make a lot of units. And because I made this many units, I'm going to make all these units. I think we have once more Links running into the natural too. Those won't do anything. But Rattata's going to have a hard time dealing with this, despite the fact that Lambo's up 16 drones.
Oh, I like this. He's just going to commit all the Banes on the morphing Bane. So that means now that it is +1 Lings against not a lot of Roaches. So Lambo, he made all those units. He's going to lose all of those units. Now he has lost a lot of tempo on the map. Lambo should be able to defend at home. He's going to have Roaches in a good spot. He's going to have Queens. But now Rattata, despite being down in workers just a little bit, has bought time, and the Ling run by starts to get a little complicated. You put him in multiple bases. This army that Lambo has made does need critical mass to be able to deal with. Some more Queens start to fall. Lings in the main base. You're going to knock down some of these Roaches. Drones are starting to fall here as well. The Queen should die, but Bailey's come crashing into the third from both sides.
Wow.
Lambo not paying attention. And Rattata with the worker lead now. 6 mutas are on the way. And it feels like Rattata maybe not stabilizing just yet because there are a lot of Roaches and there's a Nidus here, but he is starting to tread the path towards equality.
Yeah, there's only 5 Queens on the map now as well. So I think 1 or 2 Queens, 4 Queens even have already gone down. So Lambo kind of just wants to end this game before the mutas get out in very high numbers. If Rattata can find that first Nidus from going down and he can just prevent it one time, I actually think he's going to be totally fine. But this is going to be a very scary 45 seconds. However, Middleisk and +1 Links doing a very good job so far. Where will Lambo drop that first Nidus? That is kind of the big question at this point. It's going to be on the right side. The Banelings of Rattata, oh, so close to finding it. If he sees what's happening and he can just go for it, he might still be fine anyway, even though if he's down 30 supply. But you don't want to see Spore Crawlers go up on creep. That's where things get very dicey.
Oh, and I love what Lambo, what he's doing. They're just bringing the drone with the army, not the Nidus. But here come Queens. It looks like they have, 2, 3 transfuses. Actually, the high-energy Queen is not on creep, so the mutas are just going to dive on top of it. It's dead. No more transfuses here, so that actually is a bit of a misplay coming in from Lambo. The Spore goes down. More mutas are on the way, and yes, more Spores are going to be made, but we just don't have the Queen count anymore, Roddy. So the Spores, they're going to be made, but they're going to go down pretty damn quickly here, and now it is all about the Roaches. How much damage can they get done before Rattata makes the hold happen? He does not have enough Lings just yet. +1 Lings, they're going to look for the surrounds. 13 drones have died, but the mutas, they can rotate between the bases pretty quickly. So now it is 16 workers. Rattata taking significant economic damage, but he's starting to equalize his supply just a little bit, diving on top of the Spores. But as there are 3 Spores here, you cannot take the fight as the mutas to get one shot by this Spore count. So now as the Spores creep forward, you're trying to catch them as they burrow, or you need to hit critical mass on the Lings. Both of these things incredibly difficult to do. So while the Queens did not have the energy, and that was a big mistake, it feels like Lambo has found that foothold where it is just so hard now for Rattata to be able to punch through.
Yeah, but it's also going to be hard for Lambo to really make a lot of progress. +1 Lings are looking for a counterattack again, and these Lings can really go to town on these queens. That's so nice as well, because now those queens won't show up on the other side of the map. Lambo is going to take out the Baning Nest, but that's perhaps not the most important thing on the side of Rattata at this point. 32 drones is not a lot, but it's definitely enough to still build a couple of Munas. I really wouldn't hate a few spines in the back of the natural. I think that would make Rattata's life a lot easier. Instead, he's still looking for a little bit of damage. Has a few more +1 Lings on the other side of the map. I don't know, man. Lambo's going to kill a lot more. Rattata, where are the Munas? He's just going to go for the base trade? What is he doing? Oh my goodness.
You know, I actually don't hate it because there are so many spores on Rattata's side of the field, but so long as maybe he gets some drones out, we have no spores actually on this side of the map. Some are being made right now. These are a bunch of high energy queens, but they're all going to go down. And Mutas, a couple of them popping out at home, a couple Lings. So yeah, full base trade here. Rattata taking advantage of the fact that all the static defense, all the anti-Muta play is on the other side of the map. And Roddy, +1 Lings, Mutas, they base trade a lot better than Roaches do. So even though Lambo has first movers advantage, we're not going to see any of these spores get up here. Maybe one in the third, I guess.
Oh, no.
But drones are starting to die. Yeah, the spores are not ready at all.
Yeah, a couple of Munas flew into Spore Crawlers on the other side of the map. I mean, you're right about Lings being great in base trade scenarios. The problem is he only has one Zergling, literally one Zergling. And I have the feeling that I have the feeling Rattata is just going to lose like this, because how is he ever going to kill all the Spore Crawlers on the other side of the map? Lambo obviously has a Nidus, has been doing a good job in evacuating all the drones. I don't know if he's already building ahead somewhere, or if he's actually doesn't have enough money, but I think that he can kill all the buildings of Rattata. Rattata is sending one little drone to the other side of the map, and he's got enough money to, well, I guess build an extractor somewhere, maybe one Spore Crawler or a Spine. I mean, maybe it could become a draw, but to me, this feels like it's going to be a whole lot better for Lambo, because Rattata is like literally not going to have any buildings.
Okay, so Roddy, the next level play, you have to kill the head of the Nidus right now. You do not let that army go back home, because that is Lambo's next play. He's killed off so much of this. He's going to try to deal with the extractor, but if you kill the Nidus and then Lambo has to run back home, so his army is kind of caught in the middle of the map, then you can go kill the rest of the static defense. You have to really make them move around here, because remember, spores count as building, or burrowed spores count as buildings. So we're not going to see them move necessarily. So you need to force the Roaches, the Queens out of position. Meanwhile, you kill everything else. So that is what Rattata is trying to do here, killing some of these spores that they do get made. Rattata, so he has 4 extractors, but this is much more problematic now, because that drone is dead. All the extractors are now on Rattata's side of the map.
Still has one drone in the bottom right side, and he can build one more extractor there, but I have a very hard time believing that Rattata can make something out of this game, and I think he knows it too. Obviously, with your tournament live on the line in the DreamHack Masters, you are going to try to make the impossible happen, but Lambo literally still has an economy. It's not even that Lambo is done mining. Like, this game seems very, very over. Rattata tried to initiate the base trade, but if he had those 30 or 40 Zerglings with +1, like, yeah, then he can actually go to town everything quickly. But Mutas just kill stuff very slowly. And Lambo had a much better time killing everything on Rattata's side of the map than Rattata had on Lambo's side of the map. Now Lambo's looking super safe in his natural with the spores, with the queens. And all that Rattata really has is a couple of extractors. He's going to lose that last drone in the bottom right side. And then the only thing that Rattata has left are the 3 extractors that Lambo is literally in range of. Lambo is going to get on top of them, and that is going to do it.